Lieutenant Sam Parker rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the screen in front of him. It was his third night shift this week at Luna 7, the deep space monitoring station that orbited Earth's moon. Most nights were boring. He would scan empty space, check old signals, and count the hours until his shift ended. But tonight was different. A strange signal was coming from somewhere far beyond the solar system. It was not like anything in the computer files. The signal was weak and broken, but it kept repeating the same pattern over and over again. Sam leaned forward and turned up the volume. The sound was unlike anything he had heard before. It seemed urgent, almost desperate. He recorded the signal and sent it to Dr. Lisa Chang, the station's language expert. 20 minutes later, Dr. Chang rushed into the control room. Her hair was messy and she was still wearing her sleeping clothes. "Sam, where did this signal come from?" she asked, pointing at the computer screen. "Sector 7, about 40 light years away," Sam replied. "It's been repeating for the past hour. What do you think it is?" Dr. Chang put on her headphones and listened carefully. Her face grew serious as she heard the strange sounds. "This is not natural. This is made by someone intelligent. Someone who needs help." She worked for 6 hours straight, running the signal through every computer program she had. Captain Jake Morrison arrived at the station just as the sun was rising over Earth. "What do we have?" Captain Morrison asked. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been in space for 20 years and had seen many strange things. "Sir, I think we have our first real contact with aliens," Dr. Chang said, "and they are in serious trouble." She played the decoded message. A voice, clearly not human, spoke in broken English mixed with their own language. "People of Earth, we are Zelani. We learned your language from signals you sent to space. We are dying. Our world burns. The Kreks come like death from the stars. They take our children. They kill our old ones. They make slaves of those who live." The voice paused, and they could hear explosions in the background. "We know you fight wars. We see your movies, your news. You know how to make war. We do not. We are peaceful people. We grow food and make music. We have no weapons. No soldiers. The Kreks kill us like animals." Captain Morrison felt a cold anger growing in his chest. He had 2 children of his own back on Earth. The message continued. "We found your location from old radio signals. Earth, 3rd planet from your star. We send you our star maps. We send you everything we know about the Kreks. Maybe you can stop them. Maybe you can save what is left of us. We are the Zelani. We ask for your help." The signal ended with coordinates and technical data about the attacking force. Dr. Chang looked up from her computer. "Captain, there's more. They've included detailed star charts and information about this Kreks dominion. It looks like these Kreks have been conquering other worlds for hundreds of years." Sam pulled up the star charts on the main screen. "Sir, look at this. If their information is correct, the Kreks expansion pattern is heading straight toward our colonies. Earth could be next." Captain Morrison studied the data. The Kreks had conquered 47 different worlds. They seemed to follow the same pattern each time. They would arrive with massive fleets, destroy all military resistance, and then enslave the population. Any species that fought back was completely destroyed. "How far away are they?" Morrison asked. "The Zelani system is about 40 light years from here," Dr. Chang replied. "But according to this data, the Kreks are expanding in our direction. They could reach our outer colonies in maybe 10 years. Morrison walked to the window and looked out at Earth, blue and peaceful in the distance. He thought about his children, playing in the park near their home. He thought about all the families on Earth who had no idea that somewhere in space, children were being taken from their parents by monsters. "Send an emergency message to Admiral Roy Carter at Earth Defense Command," Morrison ordered. "Tell him we need to meet right away, and prepare a full report on everything we've learned." 3 hours later, Admiral Carter arrived at Luna 7 with his top officers. Carter was a hard man who had fought in the colony wars 20 years ago. He did not show emotion easily, but as he listened to the Zilani message, his jaw tightened. "How? Do we know this is real?" asked Colonel Linda Grant, the Admiral's intelligence chief. "This could be a trick." Dr. Chang showed them the technical data. "The information is too detailed to be fake. Look at these ship designs, these weapon specifications. No human could have made this up. And the signal came from the exact location they claim to be from." Admiral Carter studied the star maps. "If this is true, then we have a serious problem. These Kreks are not just threatening some aliens we've never met. They're on a path that leads straight to us. What are you thinking, Admiral?" Morrison asked. Carter was quiet for a long moment. "I'm thinking that we need to know more. Morrison, how fast can you get a ship ready for a reconnaissance mission to the Zilani system? The Defiant is ready to go. We could leave within 48 hours. Do it. Take your best people. I want to know everything about these Kreks, their numbers, their weapons, their tactics. Everything." Colonel Grant looked worried. "Sir, are we really considering getting involved in an alien war? This isn't our fight." Admiral Carter turned to face her. "Colonel, my grandfather used to tell me stories about the old days on Earth. He said there were times when evil people would attack innocent families, and good people had to choose. They could look away and hope the evil would not come for them next, or they could stand up and fight." He pointed at the star charts. "The Kreks are coming for us eventually. We can wait for them to finish killing the Zilani and then come for our families, or we can do something about it now." Morrison felt the same cold anger he had felt when he first heard the message. "Admiral, request permission to volunteer for the reconnaissance mission." Permission granted. "But Morrison, this is just information gathering. We need to know what we're dealing with before we make any big decisions." As the meeting ended, Morrison looked once more at the peaceful Earth outside the window. Soon he would travel farther from home than any human had ever gone. He would see things that would probably give him nightmares for the rest of his life. But somewhere in the darkness, between the stars, children were crying for help. And Jake Morrison had never been able to ignore the sound of children in danger. The Zilani had asked for help from Earth. They were about to learn that when humans heard children crying, they did not just send help. They came with everything they had. The Defiant moved through space like a silent ghost. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars. They had been traveling for 3 weeks, and now they were close to the Zilani system. What they would find there, no one knew. Commander Beth Torres checked her instruments. She was Morrison's second in command and the best tactical officer in the fleet. "Captain, we're picking up massive energy readings ahead. It looks like there's a war going on." Morrison nodded. "Take us in slow. Use all stealth systems. I want to see what's happening before they see us." Chief Engineer Matt Robinson worked at his station, making sure their ship stayed invisible. "Stealth field is holding steady, Captain. We should be able to get close without being detected." Dr. Nina Wells, the ship's scientist, watched her screens with growing concern. "Captain, I'm detecting huge amounts of radiation. Whatever's happening out there, it's not good." As they got closer to the Zilani system, the crew of the Defiant saw something that made them sick to their stomachs. What had once been beautiful worlds full of life were now burning ruins. Huge alien ships, dark and threatening, hung in space above the planets like vultures. "My God," whispered Torres. "They've destroyed everything." Morrison's hands tightened into fists. Through the ship's powerful cameras, they could see the surface of the main Zilani world. Cities that had probably taken centuries to build were now piles of smoking rubble. Strange machines were digging deep holes in the ground, tearing up the planet for its resources. "Captain, I'm getting a weak signal from the asteroid belt, reported the communications officer. It might be survivors. Morrison made his decision. Quickly, take us there, carefully. They found the source of the signal hidden inside a large asteroid. A small group of Zilani had somehow survived and were trying to stay hidden from the Krek ships that patrolled the system. The first Zilani they met was named Zefka. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like tree bark. His large eyes were full of sadness but also hope when he saw the humans. "You came," he said in broken English. "The people of Earth heard our call." Morrison felt his heart break when he looked at Zefka. The alien was injured and clearly hadn't eaten well in weeks. "How many of your people are still alive?" Zefka's voice shook as he answered. "Maybe 10,000, hiding in places like this. Before the Kreks came, we were 50 million. They killed most of us in the first week. The rest they took away." Commander Torres asked the question everyone was thinking. "Where did they take them?" "To the work camps. The Kreks make them dig in the mines until they die. The strong ones last maybe a year, the weak ones." Zefka could not finish the sentence. Dr. Wells had been scanning the Zilani with her instruments. "Captain, I need to tell you something important. The Zilani are completely peaceful. I mean completely. They don't even have words in their language for murder or war. They literally cannot understand why someone would want to hurt another person." Morrison looked at the alien survivor. "Zefka, did your people try to fight back?" The Zilani looked confused. "Fight? We do not understand. When the Kreks came, we tried to talk to them. We offered to share our food, our technology, our worlds. We thought they wanted to be friends. What did the Kreks do?" Zefka's voice became very quiet. "They laughed. Then they started killing. They said we were weak and stupid. They said the galaxy belonged to the strong, and we were not strong." Torres was studying the data they had collected about the Krek ships. "Captain, I think I understand their strategy. They use overwhelming force and fear. They've probably never fought anyone who fights back intelligently." Morrison walked to the observation window and looked out at the Krek's fleet. The enemy ships were huge and powerful, but they moved in simple patterns. "Tell me more." "Look at how they position their ships," Torres explained. "They don't expect resistance. They're not even keeping proper watch. They think they've already won." Chief Robinson had been listening to Krek's communications. "Captain, from what I can understand, they've conquered 47 different species using the same tactics every time. They show up with massive firepower, destroy the main cities, and wait for surrender." Dr. Wells looked up from her research. "It gets worse. The Kreks aren't just conquerors. They think they're doing the galaxy a favor. They believe that only the strong deserve to live, and they see themselves as the strongest." Morrison turned to Zefka. "Tell me about the Kreks themselves. What are they like?" The Zilani's 4 arms moved nervously. "They are not like us, not like you. They are made of metal and rock, not flesh. They do not feel pain like we do. They do not care about their own lives, only about winning. How do they think? Everything is about power to them. The stronger Kreks give orders to the weaker ones. They believe that if you can take something, you deserve to have it. If you cannot defend something, you deserve to lose it." Commander Torres was putting together a tactical analysis. "Captain, I think they have a major weakness. They've never fought an enemy that adapts. Every species they've conquered was peaceful or had simple military tactics." Morrison was beginning to form a plan. "What do you mean?" "Look at their formation. It's the same one they probably used on every world they conquered. They don't change tactics because they've never needed to. They've never faced an enemy that learns from mistakes and comes back stronger." Dr. Wells made another disturbing discovery. "Captain, the Kreks have detailed files on Earth. They know about our location, our colonies, everything. We're on their list." Morrison felt ice in his veins. How long do we have? Based on their expansion pattern, maybe 10 years before they reach our outer colonies. 15 before they get to Earth. Zefka looked at the humans with desperate hope. Can you help us? Can you stop them? Morrison looked at the alien, then at his crew. These people had asked Earth for help because they thought humans knew how to fight wars. They had watched human movies and news reports and decided that maybe, just maybe, the people of Earth could do what no one else in the galaxy had been able to do. Zefka, I need you to tell me everything you know about the Kreks, their technology, their weaknesses, everything. You will help us? Morrison thought about his children back on Earth. He thought about all the Zilani children who had already been taken by the Kreks. He thought about the 47 other species that had been destroyed or enslaved. We're going to do more than help you, Morrison said quietly. We're going to teach the Kreks what happens when they threaten innocent people. Torres looked at her captain. Sir, we're just one ship. The Kreks have thousands. Morrison smiled. But it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just found its prey. Commander, send a message back to Earth. Tell Admiral Carter that we found the enemy. Tell him that the Kreks have made the biggest mistake in their history. What mistake is that, sir? Morrison looked out at the Krek ships, thinking about all the species they had destroyed. They asked for help from a world full of predators. They're about to learn what humans do to things that threaten our families. As the Defiant prepared to leave the Zilani system, Morrison knew that everything was about to change. The Kreks thought they were the strongest beings in the galaxy. They were about to discover that strength wasn't just about having bigger guns. Sometimes strength meant never giving up. Sometimes it meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. And sometimes it meant showing monsters that there were bigger monsters in the dark between the stars. The war was coming. And the Kreks had no idea what they had awakened. The message from Captain Morrison reached Earth at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Earth time. Admiral Carter was asleep when his emergency phone rang. By 4 a.m., he was in the war room reading Morrison's report. By 6 a.m., he was on a secure line with the President of Earth. How bad is it? President Johnson asked. Bad, Carter replied. The Kreks have destroyed an entire civilization. 50 million people dead or enslaved. And they're headed our way. Within hours, emergency meetings were happening in every major city on Earth and all the human colonies. General Kate Murphy, the most experienced military commander in human space, was called back from retirement. Dr. Alex Rivera, the brilliant weapons scientist, was pulled out of his research lab. Captain Doug Stevens, who had led special forces missions on 5 different worlds, was ordered to report immediately. The decision was made quickly. Earth was going to war. General Murphy stood in front of a room full of military leaders from every human world. She was a small woman with gray hair, but when she spoke, everyone listened. People, we face an enemy that has conquered 47 different worlds. They have superior numbers and advanced technology. They think they cannot be beaten. She paused and looked around the room. They're wrong. Vice Admiral Helen Cross, in charge of the Space Navy, stood up. General, what exactly are you planning? Murphy smiled coldly. We're going to do something no other species has ever done. We're going to fight back. Not just defend ourselves, but attack. We're going to destroy the Kreks dominion completely. The room was quiet. Finally, Colonel James Lee spoke up. Ma'am, with respect, how can we fight an empire that has thousands of ships and controls dozens of star systems? Because we're human, Murphy replied. Because we come from a world where only the strong survive. Because we've been fighting wars since we lived in caves. The Kreks think they're predators. They're about to learn what real predators look like. Dr. Rivera was put in charge of weapons development. He worked 18 hours a day, turning human technology into tools of war. Nuclear missiles were redesigned for space combat. Kinetic weapons that could punch through any armor were built in factories that ran day and night, but Rivera's most important project was kept secret from everyone except General Murphy. He was developing biological weapons designed specifically to kill Kreks. No other species had ever tried this because most civilizations considered it too horrible. Humans had no such limits when it came to protecting their families. Captain Stevens was given command of a new unit called the Deathworlder Corps. These were soldiers chosen from the toughest environments in human space. Men and women who had fought in the ice caves of Europa, the burning deserts of Mars, the poisonous swamps of Titan. Listen carefully, Stevens told his new soldiers. The enemy thinks they're tough because they've beaten up peaceful farmers and scared shopkeepers. They've never fought soldiers from Earth. They've never faced humans who grew up where everything wants to kill them. Meanwhile, Admiral Cross was building the largest fleet in human history. Every spaceship that could carry weapons was brought to the secret staging areas. Civilian cargo ships were turned into troop transports. Mining ships became mobile weapons platforms. Even luxury cruise ships were fitted with missile launchers. The colonies contributed more than anyone expected. Mars sent their entire industrial output. The ice miners of Europa volunteered to join the fleet. The farmers on New Texas offered to feed the entire expedition. Children on Earth drew pictures of spaceships and sent them to the soldiers with messages that said, "Come home safe." Intelligence reports came in daily from spies and reconnaissance missions. The Kreks Empire was huge but spread thin. Their military was powerful but overconfident. Most importantly, they had never faced an enemy that got stronger during a fight instead of weaker. General Murphy studied the maps of Krek space. They control their empire through fear and overwhelming force. But what happens when someone isn't afraid? What happens when someone hits back harder than they hit? Dr. Rivera made a breakthrough in his secret laboratory. "General, I found their weakness. The Kreks are silicon-based life forms, but they still need certain minerals to survive. I can create a virus that will attack their nervous systems. How effective will it be? Completely. Any Kreks exposed to this will die within hours, and it only affects them. It's harmless to humans and every other species we've tested." Murphy felt a cold satisfaction. How much can you make? Enough to sterilize every Kreks world in their empire. Meanwhile, Captain Stevens was training his Deathworlder Corps in tactics the galaxy had never seen. Urban warfare in zero gravity. Assassination techniques for space stations. How to turn civilian areas into death traps for occupying forces. The Kreks expect their enemies to fight fair, Stevens explained to his soldiers. They expect armies to meet armies in open battle. We're not going to do that. We're going to hit them where they don't expect it, when they don't expect it, and how they don't expect it. Admiral Cross had assembled over 800 ships. It was the largest military force humans had ever created. But she wasn't satisfied. "General, I need more ships. The Kreks have thousands." "You'll get them," Murphy replied. "But remember, we're not fighting their kind of war. We don't need to match their numbers. We need to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless." The final piece of the plan came together when Morrison's ship returned from another reconnaissance mission. He brought with him detailed information about Kreks military bases, supply lines, and communication networks. "They have 12 major military bases," Morrison reported. "If we can destroy those, their entire command structure will collapse." Murphy studied the intelligence. "How well defended are they?" "Very well, against conventional attacks. But they're not expecting infiltration. They don't guard against the kind of tactics humans would use." Stevens smiled. "My people can handle infiltration." Rivera added, "And once we're inside, we can deploy the biological weapons." Murphy looked around the room at her commanders. These were people who had spent their lives preparing for war, but never a war like this. Never a war where the future of humanity depended on being more brutal than an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. People, we launch in 72 hours. Remember what we're fighting for. The Kreks have killed billions of innocent people. They're planning to do the same to us. We're going to stop them. She paused and looked each of them in the eye. But we're not just going to stop them. We're going to make sure that no species ever again has to beg for help against monsters like this. We're going to make the galaxy a safer place. 3 days later, the human fleet departed from Earth. 800 ships carrying the most dangerous soldiers humanity had ever produced. As they jumped into hyperspace, a message was broadcast on all frequencies throughout Krek space. The message was simple and delivered in the Krek's language. You asked for help from Earth. We heard you. We are coming. Surrender now, or face extinction. General Murphy stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars blur as they traveled faster, then light toward their enemy. She thought about her own grandchildren, safe in their beds on Earth. She thought about the Zilani children who had been taken from their parents. She thought about 47 civilizations that had died calling for help that never came. Krek's dominion had ruled through fear for 300 years. They were about to discover that there were things in the universe more frightening than they were. The humans were coming, and they were bringing death with them. The first Krek's base died without warning. Captain Jenny Walsh flew her stealth fighter through the darkness between the stars. Her ship was invisible to Krek sensors, built with technology they had never seen before. She slipped past their defense systems like a ghost and planted bombs in their communication center. When the explosion started, the Krek's commanders tried to call for help, but their radios were dead. Their computers were gone. They were alone and blind. That was when Captain Stevens and his Deathworlder corps arrived. The Kreks had never fought humans before. They expected their enemies to be scared, to surrender when faced with superior numbers. Instead, they found soldiers who fought like demons in the dark. Stevens led his team through the base corridors. The Kreks were stronger and had better armor, but they had never fought anyone who used the environment as a weapon. Humans turned off the lights and fought in complete darkness. They used the air vents to move unseen. They booby-trapped doorways and corridors. This is impossible, one Krek's commander radioed before he died. They fight like animals, like predators. Dr. Tom Bradley followed behind the assault teams with his medical unit. But he wasn't just treating wounded humans. He was also helping the slaves the Kreks had captured from other worlds. Many of them had been prisoners for years and couldn't believe they were being rescued. You're free, Bradley told a group of Zilani children who had been taken from their families. The humans are here. You're going home. The same scene was happening at 11 other Kreks bases at exactly the same time. The human attack was perfectly coordinated. While Stevens' ground forces fought inside the bases, Admiral Cross's fleet destroyed the Krek ships in space. The Kreks had more ships, but human tactics were better. Earth's vessels were smaller and faster. They didn't fight like the Kreks expected. Instead of big battles with ships lined up shooting at each other, humans attacked from all directions at once. They're everywhere, a Krek ship captain reported before his vessel exploded. How can they be everywhere at once? Commander Rick Hunter led deep strike missions behind enemy lines. His teams would appear suddenly, destroy important targets, and vanish before the Kreks could respond. They hit supply depots, communication relays, and command centers. The Kreks tried to fight back using their old methods. They threatened to kill prisoners. They promised to destroy entire planets if the humans didn't surrender. General Murphy's response was broadcast across the galaxy. We don't negotiate with monsters. For every innocent person you harm, we will destroy 10 of your ships. For every world you threaten, we will liberate 2. You started this war. We will finish it. As the human offensive continued, something unexpected happened. The species that had been enslaved by the Kreks began to join the fight. The peaceful Zilani used their technology to help human ships move faster and hit harder. Other liberated peoples provided intelligence, supplies, and soldiers. Overlord Zex Prime, the supreme commander of all Krex forces, watched his empire crumble from his fortress on the Krex homeworld. He had ruled for 200 years and conquered dozens of species. He had never seen anything like these humans. "How are they doing this?" he demanded from his generals. "They're just one species. We have controlled the galaxy for centuries." "Sir, they don't fight like anyone we've faced before," General Krex 7 reported. "When we destroy one of their ships, the others get angry and fight harder. When we capture their soldiers, they don't beg for mercy. They try to escape and keep fighting. And the liberated species are helping them," added Admiral Krex 12. "The slaves we thought were broken are rising up everywhere." Zex Prime slammed his metal fist on the table. "Then we will show them true power. Prepare the Death Fleet. We will destroy their homeworld and end this rebellion." But it was too late. Dr. Rivera's biological weapons had already been deployed on 12 Krex worlds. The virus spread quickly through their population. Krex soldiers began dying by the thousands. Their immune systems, which had never faced biological warfare, couldn't fight off the disease. Captain Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, led the final assault on the Krex homeworld. The planet was defended by over 300 ships and had never been successfully attacked. Morrison didn't attack it conventionally. Instead, he used a strategy that only humans would think of. "All ships, target their orbital platforms with kinetic weapons," he ordered. "Push them down toward the planet." The humans didn't try to destroy the Krex defense stations. Instead, they knocked them out of orbit and let gravity do the work. Huge pieces of metal and machinery crashed into the Krex cities below. Zex Prime tried to evacuate as his world burned around him. But Stevens and his soldiers were already inside his fortress. They had infiltrated through the sewage systems, a route the Krex had never considered because they thought it was beneath their dignity. The final battle was short. Zex Prime faced Captain Stevens in single combat, confident that his superior strength and armor would win. He discovered that strength meant nothing when your opponent had studied every weakness in your fighting style. Stevens didn't fight fair. He used weapons the Krex had never seen. He fought dirty, targeting joints and weak points. When Zex Prime fell, Stevens stood over him and said, "This is for every child you took from their parents." With their leader dead and their homeworld in ruins, the Krex dominion collapsed. Some Krex tried to surrender, others fled to distant parts of the galaxy. But their empire was finished. The liberated species began the long process of rebuilding their worlds. The Zilani returned to their devastated planet and started growing new cities. Other species reclaimed their homeworlds and began to heal from centuries of slavery. A year later, Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship as they returned to Earth. Through the window, he could see the blue planet where his children were waiting for him. Commander Torres joined him at the window. "Sir, do you think we did the right thing?" Morrison thought about all the species that were now free. He thought about the children who would grow up without fear of being taken by monsters. He thought about the 47 civilizations that had been avenged. "The Krex ruled through fear for 300 years, he said. "They thought they were the strongest beings in the galaxy. They learned too late that there's a difference between being strong and being ruthless." News of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had been planning conquests suddenly changed their minds. Aggressive empires began withdrawing from expansion efforts. The message was clear. Earth's children were not to be threatened. In the years that followed, other species would send their young ones to learn from human military academies. They wanted to understand how one species could defeat an empire that had seemed unstoppable. The answer was simple. Humans were the children of a world where everything tried to kill them. They had learned to survive by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than anything they faced. But most importantly, they had learned that some things were worth fighting for. Family was worth fighting for. Children were worth fighting for. Innocent people were worth fighting for. The galaxy had learned a new truth. When children cried for help in the darkness between the stars, the humans would hear them. And they would come with fire and fury to make the monsters pay. Morrison smiled as Earth grew larger in the window. His children were safe. All the children in the galaxy were safer now. The Kreks had asked for help from Earth. They got exactly what they asked for.